Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this meeting of the Council of the Town of Oakville. We have a jam-packed agenda tonight with lots of good stuff. And I'd like to invite everybody to rise and join council in singing O Canada. Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. I'd like to say that Saturday night at the beginning of the season for the Oakville Symphony Orchestra, as is their custom, they began with the entire orchestra playing O Canada, and the sold out for the 7th year in a row subscription. So the Center for Performing Arts was full, every seat full, and everybody stood and sang. The best part was, as soon as he had the orchestra going, the conductor turned to the audience and got them going, and it was a thrilling experience. And I hope that everyone is as proud as I am of our Oakville Symphony Orchestra. And as a bonus, they promised me that they were willing to come fill the chamber one night and play it for us to sing. So there you go. I'm now going to lead us in our opening prayer, and followed by our moment of silent reflection, and then we will begin the meeting proper. God grant us understanding and patience, that justice, truth, and honesty may be evident in our decisions. Make us mindful of the needs of the people throughout the town of Oakville. Help us govern with the wider community in mind, and so create in us a desire for progress and responsible action. We ask this in your name. Amen. Thank you, everyone. Madam Clerk, would you have regrets for this meeting?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have regrets from Councillor Robinson.
Thank you. And Council, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Councillor Knoll.
Your Worship, I just want to reiterate the declaration that I made on last Tuesday with respect to administrative services, and specifically with respect to the Trafalgar Township Historical Society item. I am a member of that organization. My wife's on the board of directors, and as a result, I want to declare a potential conflict.
All right, we'll separate that item and vote it separately without you. All right, Council, you have several sets of minutes, and are you satisfied with them, and how do you wish to proceed? Councillor Khan? Councillor Khan moves approval of the minutes. Councillor Knoll seconds. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? The minutes are adopted. It's now my great pleasure to invite the president of Oakville Hydro, Rob Lister, to the podium for the beginning of a presentation.
I'm pleased this evening to have this opportunity to introduce to Council our workers who traveled to Long Island, New York to help restore power. Power lost due to Hurricane Sandy and the devastation it created. I have a number of slides to show you to illustrate the incredible circumstances. It was a massive weather system covering thousands of kilometers. Here it is off the coast of Florida in late October. Blocks of homes were burned to the ground in a windswept fire. This one occurred in Queens. Flooding from the ocean surge. Note the parking meter on the left and the buildup of the sand. Coney Island Amusement Park destroyed. Flooding. Huge surf. Fires were prevalent. And in the aftermath, a mess. Hydro lines and hydro poles down everywhere. Trees on the roadways. Fallen trees caused significant damage to homes. Watercraft were displaced. Cars damaged. Homes damaged by water. Neighborhoods impacted. Lineups for gas. And people couldn't charge their cell phones. So on Friday, November 2nd, I was contacted by the Long Island Power Authority seeking assistance. We sent 9 volunteers to Long Island for 11 days. Many other Ontario utilities also sent help. They were deployed to one of the hardest hit areas on the eastern seaboard. 1.5 million customers out of power in Long Island alone. There were long processing lines to get across the border. The trip took 12 hours in 6 large line vehicles that we sent. Fuel became an issue as they got closer. Sleeping accommodations were difficult to find, sleeping in rec centers. Some utilities were in fire halls. Our crews were in trucks for one night. To make matters worse, there was a snowstorm that brought more trees down and caused more outages. 16 to 18-hour workdays, day after day, restoring power. A week after the hurricane, there were still 237,000 customers out of power, probably about 1 million people. Here's a photo of our Joe Perry with some residents who jumped out of their car to hug him as he was working on the street. When our crews arrived, there were 5,000 line workers and tree trimmers brought into Long Island. By the weekend, the number had grown to 15,000 workers working on restoring power. On November 14th, our crews were back in Oakville. We're very proud of what Oakville could do to help out. Proud of our staff who volunteered to go, not knowing what they were getting into. And proud of the staff here in Oakville who supported the workers in New York and who also ensured that Oakville's electricity distribution system continued to be operated and maintained safely. The cross-jurisdictional cooperation that occurs in the energy industry is a noteworthy model. As well as hydro workers, the gas companies also sent staff to help restore gas services. The mutual aid philosophy is a concept we embrace and are pleased to be part of it. We answer the request for assistance and will be reimbursed for our costs by the requesting utility. If Oakville is in need someday, there will be others who will come to our aid. Our staff that went to New York include Chris Cudmore, Peter Vanu, Paul Horscroft, Joe Rizzi, Joe Perry, Garrett St. Pierre, John Costello, Alex Russick, and Brett Latoul. 4 of the team, Chris Cudmore, Peter Vanu, Paul Horscroft, and John Rizzi, also were part of the Oakville Hydro staff that went to Quebec and Eastern Ontario in 1998, 15 years ago, to restore power after the massive ice storm. Members of Council, our Oakville Hydro, Long Island Power Restoration Team. Gentlemen.
It's an outstanding job, and we're very proud of you. We have a certificate to commemorate your service, and I'd ask President Lister to give them over. I want to thank Councillor Khan for going and meeting you on your return to represent us, and I have a quick little story that I think you'll all enjoy. We have a fairly prominent player in the NHL from Oakville named John Tavares. And I was so proud when, right after you guys were there, he tweeted on Twitter a buddy of his who lives in Long Island whose power you restored. And I thought that was so cool that, and it bespoke to me that he obviously is proud of Oakville because his buddy knew he was from Oakville, so he's not hiding it. So good on us all, and thank you very much.
Did you want to
Oh,
come?
and pictures.
Pictures. So,
All right. However you guide us here.
The easiest way is to have all the gentlemen stand up, and maybe you and Mr. Lister could be...
So we could stand in the center here? Okay. That's what we'll do. When I was in film and TV, I used to say, we just fill the gaps. Just like that. We're just stacking up here. Thank you. Thank you very much. Not a problem, sir. Now we're good. We're ready for delegations, and we have a number. Madam Clerk, would you call the first delegation?
The first delegation is John Canning, Regional Towing and Atlantic Towing, regarding the tow truck licensing issue, item 6 of the Administrative Services Committee meeting.
Welcome, Mr. Canning. Council
Thank
looks
you,
forward
Worship
to your
members of
information.
council. I'm here to ask you tonight not to proceed with the bylaw for tow trucks in Oakville. Based on the complaint you've had, it's a private property issue. I've given you a handout. I did some extra work today trying to put this together for you. A little bit of research on the internet and a few little things. Mississauga had the same problem with towing from private property. There was numerous companies that could come into Mississauga under common law with an agreement between a property owner and themselves to tow from private property, but there was no a sense of price put on there, anything else, so the car could be towed from that municipality anywhere they wanted to and charge whatever price they want. We've operated a towing company in Oakville here for the last 14 years. We fought very hard and worked along the Halt Regional Police to work with a rotational system for the accident towing, even though we had a prohibition for solicitation on the accident scene. This is one very unique system that's been working for the last 9 years as a rotation, and everyone that's on that rotation is very happy with the outcome of it. There's no solicitation, there's no procurement of the accident scene, there's no tow trucks to the accident scene, and Halton Police enforce that. So to move on a little bit about background myself. I've been in the business for 35 years. I started out in the towing industry in 1976 in Mississauga, progressed into the auto body business and on to into here in Oakville for the last 14 years, operating 3 facilities, 1 in Milton and 2 in Oakville. We operate 7 trucks out of Oakville here. They work pretty long hours, and to license them, there's only 1 person per truck. So 3 go home, 4 come out on the road. A lot like the hydro workers here, 16 hours. Our guys are 18, 20 hours on the road. They shouldn't be, but that's the nature of the business. I ask that you look at page 19, the copy I've given you, and it's a traffic bylaw. Oakville also has a traffic bylaw, and it's 1984-1. What Mississauga done is they've added this to if you look at section 41, private property, municipal property. So that's basically, they've added this into this part of the traffic bylaw to tow off private property at a cost and under jurisdiction of the town or city, whatever it may be. It's kind of long, but I'm not going to get into long. We've got 10 minutes. I want to keep this any longer than you have to be. So if you go to page, you go to page 21, it goes on to vehicle towing. It says, in addition to any penalties provided for this bylaw, the member of the Peel Regional Police or municipal enforcement officer may, where a parked car stopped or contravenes in all these sections, is towed away by municipal law, which is a bylaw. So basically the car is tagged and towed. And if you go to the traffic bylaw 555 for Mississauga, it gives you the schedule of what they're allowed to tow. So basically, everyone should be allowed a piece of time to move their car. I mean, if it's signed property, you park on a fire road, you deserve to be towed. You park in the wrong place, you deserve to be towed. But if you pull into a private parking lot and someone's got a little tiny sign, you don't deserve to be towed. And you don't deserve to charge extravagant charges either. So if you go to section, page number 1, little number 1, is a towing advisory committee in Mississauga. And they've got the private property and municipal act under section 555. And what they've done is they've prohibited private property towing unless in agreement with the municipality or township, whatever it may be, and the vehicle towing. So there's 2 sections. Unfortunately now Mississauga has a towing bylaw for the tow truck drivers, so they had to incorporate a driver prohibition because they have a license to tow. So what they've done in this part, they've basically said you can't tow off private property. Now, you go to page 2, there's a letter of authorization that the town would provide to a private property owner, and what they would do is they would submit, they want towed off private property, that letter would be faxed in, checked out by the municipal department here to see that that's the proper owner of the property and it's the right person to be towing off the property. If you look at Mississauga, I didn't realize, but our company does all of Mississauga. We do the north and the south under contract. You have a contract here in Oakville, but you don't use the full length of the law on your municipal on the municipal act because you have private property towing. So what we do here is when we award the police contract, we actually give the municipal contract with it, and we do it in Burlington as well. So whatever bid you price with the Halton Regional Police, that private property towing is part of it. It is today. CH&R does it today. But unfortunately, you have a few unscrupulous operators out there that are now patrolling the private property. They're not issuing tickets. They're just, someone from Sheridan College just pulls into a parking lot. These are students that are paid for permits, maybe can't afford to park there, but they're still buying hamburgers and cheeseburgers these places. But they get out of their car and they walk into the college and the car can be towed 5 minutes after. That's unfair. That's why it has to be ticketed first. And if any questions, I'm more happy to answer them.
I don't know if you had a chance to read the report from the committee, but the recommendation from the committee is to refer the matter back to staff for consultation with the industry.
Yes.
And so I believe that your wish is actually, if not being granted, it's I suppose in the limited sense, we're not passing one tonight in any event.
No, I thought by resolution you would at least take a chance to incorporate your traffic bylaw into something that's going to stop what's going on now.
Well, I think your information is very educational for council, and so I thought it was very good of you to come. Councillor Adams may have a question for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, it was actually to double check that you understood that we weren't passing one tonight, and I
No,
wanted to thank you very
understood
much, not only for joining us tonight, but also, as well as at the Admin Service Committee. I think the information that not only yourself, but the other members that were there from the industry was very helpful for the members of committee and as well as for council. And I think where we're likely to go is along the lines of what you've been discussing, and the way we get there is by referring it back to staff for them to review it with you and the other members of the industry.
Yes, thank you.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any others? Thank you very much, sir, for
You're
your
welcome.
information.
Bye-bye.
Madam Clerk, would you call the next delegation?
The next delegation is Sal Fidel, ABC Towing, again regarding the tow truck licensing issue, item 6 of the Administrative Services Committee report.
Good evening, sir. Welcome. Council looks
evening,
forward to your information.
Yes, I'm actually not Sal Fidel. He works in our management team. Unfortunately, he's stuck in traffic somewhere at the border coming back from a towing event this weekend in Baltimore. He asked me to please come in and explain why he's not here. Having said that, what John Canning just presented is our same view, and we're willing to work with the committee in any way, shape, or form that we can help. So just his regrets.
Thank you very much for coming in his place. Would you be kind enough to give us your name?
Sure. My name is Memo, M-E-M-O. Last name Moreno, M-O-R-E-N-O.
Mr. Moreno, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.
Madam
Good night.
Clerk, would you call the next delegation?
Is Frank Zvatosek regarding the laneway off Church Street between Reynolds and Allen Street, item 4 of the Administrative Services Committee agenda.
Welcome,
Hi.
sir.
Hi.
We're interested in your information, and I'd also like to know how to say your name.
It's Swatusek.
Swatusek. It's
Yeah.
easy, just like it says, right?
Just
Thank
like
you
it
very
says.
much.
It's like Merrick Svatos from the Avalanche, but just a little bit extra at the end. I just wanted to speak to the issue, and I hope that the council accepts the recommendation. My mother is the landlord of 338 Church, and she's unfortunately not able to come. She's ill. This issue's been going on for about 30 years in terms of getting that laneway fixed and having somebody take responsibility. If you don't know the background, I wanted to come here and just illustrate the background. The property of the laneway, the lot was abandoned by the original developer back in the 70s, and that the original corporation is now defunct. The deeds that at least my mother has, and I know some other landlords have, the original developer was to maintain the laneway, and all the users or landlords were to contribute to its upkeep over time. Since the company has since gone bankrupt or dissolved as a corporation, nobody has taken responsibility to fixing the laneway. I myself and my father, my late father prior, for over years, have been trying to get other landlords to chip in, and that really didn't work very well, and there were only a few responsible landlords that were taking that initiative. So I have tried myself to put together a group to purchase that property and take over it privately, but it's just, there's maybe a few who are interested and others don't show up. So I've talked to a number of members of council about this issue, and I think the best process to proceed is with the town to take possession and spread the costs amongst the 15, I think it's 15 landlords that use that laneway to access their parking from Lakeshore, for the Lakeshore properties and the Church Street properties. And I'm here to answer any other questions you might have. I think I'm the only one here, one of the landlords. But anyway, that's the background.
It's almost as if it's an illustration of your very theme about who shows up. Well, thank you for being the guy who shows up.
Okay.
I don't see any questions,
Okay.
and I don't expect any difficulty with the recommendation.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much for your information. Madam Clerk, the next delegation.
The final delegation this evening is Donald McPhail regarding the 2013 rates and fees, which was item 3 of the Budget Committee meeting of November 12th.
Welcome, Mr. McPhail. Council looks forward to your information.
Thank you, Your Worship. Before I start, there's an unexplained purse on our row here, and someone may have left it. Oh, okay. Did you know it was from? Always help out a pretty girl. Mayor and members of council, on November 12th, I addressed the Budget Committee regarding the proposed fees for 2013 and expressed my concerns of the enormous cost of third-party sign permits. My presentation may not have been understood, or I may not have made myself clear. Advantage Signs is simply asking the town of Oakville for the justification of a 230% difference in permit fees. We're not disputing the 1.25% or 1.5% increase for 2013. We merely want to know why the message on a sign affects the rate. First-party signs in Oakville are $35 for 15 days. Third-party signs are $10 per day, or 230% increase in fee. And for the benefit of council who are not as familiar with signs as I am, it's been my life for the past 40 years. Will that show here if I put it down? Oh, good. That is a first-party sign if the message is the same front and back. It becomes a third-party sign when it occupies one side and that occupies the other. Okay, so we're clear and we know what a third-party sign is, or an explanation of them. It's not quite that simple, but it's the backbone of our business. Council will recall that Advantage Signs had our lawyer, Mr. Scott Snyder, attend council in 2011 regarding the total ban of the use of color. Council, in its wisdom, referred the matter to committee. The meeting took place with the 7 licensed portable sign operators, staff, Mr. Bouillon, Mr. Ferreira, Councillor Bird, and I'm sorry, I don't know the gentleman's name, but he is a fine young man, and he was from the Chamber of Commerce. At the time of the meeting, Advantage Signs was facing a charge, and it was agreed if the committee meeting removed the color barrier, Advantage Signs would plead guilty, pay the fine, and the matter would be a dead issue. And that's what took place. And today, we're not aware of any mass evacuation of Oakville's population, nor have we been apprised of any complaints over colored signs. I'd like to show you another slide where we were and where we got to. That is a sign that was in Oakville many, many years ago. You'll notice on that sign that there's misspelling. That's supposed to be the word shirts. You'll notice the feet are held by cement blocks so that they're windproof. And the I think, is missing in big. So that is what a lot of people have in mind when it comes to portable signage. Okay? Advantage Signs is now facing a similar situation over the use of third-party messages. And once again, it's before the courts, with the decision to be rendered on Monday, November 26th at the Burlington Courthouse. Advantage Signs is once again facing a major decision. Plead guilty, pay the fine, and never put a third-party message in the town of Oakville again. Option 1. If the decision of the lower court finds Advantage Signs guilty, we have the right to appeal to the higher courts. Option 2. We have case history of Advantage Signs versus the city of Stony Creek, and we have had the experience in town of Van 1 and Van 2 versus the town of Oakville. The point we are making is the fact we respect the courts and rely on them to be sure we receive fair and equitable treatment. There seems to be a misunderstanding that third-party messages produce more portable signage. Absolutely 100% false. The present Oakville sign bylaw, which is a model and one of the best, okay, restricts the use of portable signs by permit, size, duration, and numbers on property. The message has absolutely no bearing on the numbers. I have personally been in the sign advertising business since 1977, and it is safe to say that had Advantage Signs lost the Stony Creek decision, you would not have portable signs in Oakville or any other municipality today. Mobile portable signs came into Ontario in approximately 1997 from a sign model from the southern USA. These were on wheels or the present four-legged base that I showed you, and boy, what an ugly sign, and fraught with problems. Example: wind, vandalism, transportation, weight, and limited market. This is how I saw it. And 4 out of 5 is not bad. I'm still amazed at the need of the small merchant for marketing his product, and this is one of his finest tools. Advantage Signs entered in the portable sign business not on an experimental or part-time basis. I felt we had a good product, and I knew we could improve our sign and the respect of citizens and councils. This has become my full-time agenda. Most men my age are long retired, and I'm not ready to join the Tim Hortons Men's Morning Coffee Club. I have more fun talking with customers and staff. I thought we could do better, and we have brought portable signs full circle. Admittedly, portable signage was not foremost in our minds, and approximately 1996-97, a new streetscape advertising method appeared: third-party bus shelters. And soon after that, bus wraps, which are known as rolling spectaculars. The town of Oakville has only itself to blame for the introduction of third-party ads. Advantage Signs was fortunate. We had the know-how, and we had saved the portable sign industry in the aforementioned confrontation with the then city of Stony Creek. But we also had the ability to duplicate the type of third-party ads that the town of Oakville had started. We put our minds together, and the result is a product we are extremely proud of. The signs I'm showing council tonight. These are all in your municipality. Glen Abbey, or the Christmas do. I'm sorry, that's the mall. Oakdale, thank you. Good, you know the town better than I do. I'm sorry. I'm not a modern guy. They tell me that, all the time. This is Glen Abbey. Okay? This is the Hopedale Mall. This is Cobb's, that's 8th line and upper middle. And this one is Lemon Drop, 8th line and upper middle. You'll notice, you may or may not have seen, but this is the best picture. The leg portion was what I would like to point out to you. Okay? The legs of that were my design, and I got a government grant for it. That sign is virtually windproof, can be assembled in less than 10 minutes and removed in less than 10 minutes. It fits in with the rest of the landscape of signage around a municipality, and my fellow competitors in the business of the mobile sign business hate it.
Well, thank you. Our time limit has expired, but I take it your main request is that we change or explain the fees to you.
Well, I have one small a bit of the agenda left, and I'll read it quickly if I may, Your Worship, and it'll explain why I'm here.
All right.
Advantage Signs was fortunate, and we had the know-how, and we saved the portable sign business. We also had the ability to duplicate the type of third-party ads the town of Oakville had started. We put our minds together, and the result is a product I've shown you. Other municipalities that we operate in, third-party, Hamilton, Burlington, Milton, Brantford. When Advantage Signs started in 1989, we inherited a legal, ugly, cumbersome sign and a huge potential market.
Your Worship, I'm just wondering, is this a plug here? I mean, he has these signs up here. He's talking about how great his business is. I don't think this is appropriate.
Councillor,
Okay, in conclusion,
I was trying to
conclusion, I would
indulge
ask a question.
the gentleman.
Okay?
Did I understand?
Better off?
Excuse me, sir. I'm sorry, your
Worship.
time is up. I would ask you a question. Do I understand correctly that what you were asking us for is for someone to explain to you why we have the different fee between third party and first party?
That would be a good start.
Well, that's what I heard you to say you wanted. And if you will see Mr. Bullion, who will identify himself to you over there, you may even be acquainted already, he'll be glad to explain it to you.
My question explains it all, and it's 2 lines. Would we be better off out of the courts?
Sir.
The committee system resolved the color issue. Can it not resolve the wording issue?
Sir.
That's all I want to know. And thank you for your time.
Thank you for your
I didn't
information.
mean to go over time, but it's my life's work, and it's very important to me.
We just would like a little bit of order.
I thank the committee for its patience and understanding.
Thank you. All right, that ends the delegations, and council, that brings us to our standing committee and committee of the whole reports. You have the 2013 Budget Committee report, the Community Services Committee report, and the Administrative Services report, which we will take up with item 3 separated. And I'll look for a motion. Councillor Adams.
I'll move the recommendations of the standing committees.
All right, so you're moving them all, and we're separating item 3. I need a seconder. Councillor Johnston, thank you. So I'll call the vote on all except item 3 from Administrative Services. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Those are adopted. And now, with Councillor Knoll not participating because of his declared conflict, I'll call the vote on item 3. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? And item 3 is carried as well. Now that brings us to our the meat of our agenda, the discussion items. And Council, if you'll turn your attention to the Chief Administrative Officer, he will begin a presentation on facilities and construction management.
Thank you, Mayor Burton. As Council has been accustomed to, each month we've brought a director out to speak to his or her department as to the nature of their work, their accomplishments, and how they fit in the overall service delivery of Oakville. Tonight we have Shelley Switzer, who is our Director of Capital Assets.
Thank you, Ray. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. I'm here to talk to you about the Facilities and Construction Management Department. I'm pleased to have the opportunity tonight to inform council and the community of our purpose, our achievements, as well as some of the opportunities and challenges facing our department. I'll start with a little background. The Facilities and Construction Management Department was established in 2008. Prior to that time, a small group of dedicated staff, known then as the Capital Assets Facilities Maintenance Group, worked to maintain the town's building facilities. The town owned about 100 buildings then, ranging from smaller seasonal facilities like field houses and outdoor pools, to larger community centers, operations facilities, and of course, town hall. But with the exception of our large major facilities, there were no effective preventative maintenance programs. In our smaller buildings, when something broke, we fixed it. And it wasn't always clear who was supposed to fix it, the Capital Assets Group or the departments running the programs in the facility, especially in those buildings that didn't have full-time building operators. Around that same time, Ontario's Public Sector Accounting Board enacted legislation that required municipalities to inventory all town assets, including facilities. Council recognized this as the perfect opportunity to not only determine the value of our building assets, as required by the legislation, but to create an effective corporate program for the ongoing management of our building assets. And that's when the idea for the Facilities and Construction Management Department was born. Our mandate is to be responsible for the design, construction, maintenance, repair, and demolition of all town buildings, to provide a holistic corporate approach to the management of our corporate assets, from cradle to grave. This holistic approach provides the clarity and accountability that the organization needs for the effective management of those assets. So that was our beginning back in 2008. Now I'd like to tell you where we are today. The department's operating budget in 2012 is about 1.5% of the total operating budget for the town. At the same time, we account for about 1 1/3% of the total staff complement for the town. And although we're one of the smallest departments in this organization, in the past 4 years, we've managed almost 38% of the total capital construction budget for those years, which speaks to the efficiency and effectiveness of our small group. The Facilities and Construction Management Department is organized into 4 distinct business units or divisions. I'd like to introduce you to the people that lead each of these divisions. In the Administrative Services Division, Audrey Ferguson. The Manager of Maintenance and Repairs, Nicole Wolf. The Manager of New Construction, Seher Fazilat. And the 4th division is Facilities Operations, currently led by our 2 supervisors in this division, Brian Piers and Doug Markham. These are the people that drive the Facilities and Construction Management Department. Well, first I'll tell you about the Administrative Services Division, led by Audrey Ferguson. This division provides centralized support to the rest of the department. In the private sector, Audrey would likely be thought of as our office manager. Audrey's team is responsible for department records, including filing and storage protocols, asset management work orders, department purchase orders, budget variance reviews and budget support, communications, as well as the administration of the other programs that are listed here. Through this work, the Administrative Services Division enables the other 3 divisions to do their work effectively and efficiently. I'll now describe what our other 3 divisions do and how their work benefits the organization and the community. So first, the New Construction Division, managed by Seher Fazilat. Back in 2008, we were still thinking of a name for our new department when Council approved the construction of an indoor soccer facility on Pine Glen Road, the 100,000 square foot Pine Glen Soccer Arena in partnership with the Oakville Soccer Club. And just to make it interesting, the Oakville Soccer Club had to leave their current facility, so we only had 9 months to build it. To put this in perspective, just the design of a major facility would typically take 6 months to a year. But using a design-build strategy and working with MHPM project managers, we did finish in 9 months, in time for the Oakville Soccer Club's 2008 winter program. But that wasn't all. While we were building Pine Glen, we also started designing the 16-mile sports complex. We managed the site grading and site servicing for all of North Park, wrote an RFP for the consultant to design the new transit facility, and together with Recreation and Culture and Parks and Open Space, we were involved in community consultations to determine the future form and shape of the QE Park Community Centre. So our newly conceived 6-month-old new construction division was simultaneously working on the design and construction of projects totaling over $120 million. But Sahir and her team pulled it off. In the past 4 years, in keeping with Council's vision, we've built over 725,000 square feet of new facilities, with a construction cost exceeding $135 million. Sorry, folks. The 16-mile sports complex has 3 NHL-size ice pads and 1 Olympic pad with 1,500 seats. This project was not only the town's first LEED Gold facility, but was also the first LEED Gold quad pad arena in all of Canada. We then went on to build the new Oakville Transit facility, funded through the Infrastructure Stimulus Funding Program. This 265,000 square foot facility consolidates all of Oakville's essential transit services under one roof. The construction of this landmark building was completed in less than 14 months, far exceeding common scheduling expectations. Transit was the town's first geothermal project, was built to LEED Silver standards, and is currently tracking LEED Gold. So who knows, we may also be the first in Canada to achieve LEED Gold for a bus storage garage. Also noteworthy is the Queen Elizabeth Park Community and Cultural Centre. After a year of community consultation, Council approved the renovation of the former high school into a community and cultural centre. Working closely with the Recreation and Culture Department, we divided construction and occupancy into 2 stages to ensure that their essential programs started on time and to accommodate timelines for a number of external stakeholders. Over a 4-year period, Sahir's team intrepidly managed this challenging, complete repurposing of almost 144,000 square feet of space and transformed a 40-year-old high school into a state-of-the-art cultural center. Now, as these projects came on stream, we developed an in-house team of experienced project managers, specialists in the construction and renovation of large buildings and site works. Sahir and her team have also established a project management office, creating specialized construction management tools and templates. These tools are geared specifically to the management of building construction and are used across our department to help us manage risk, and are available for use across the organization. Now, even though the new construction team has delivered numerous successful projects, we still challenge ourselves to focus on innovation and continuous improvement, in keeping with Council's objectives. This focus on continuous improvement enhances our risk management function, which is vital when dealing with multi-million-dollar projects. Risk is assessed and risk mitigation strategies are established before the start of any phase of a project. This culture has resulted in all of our projects being on budget, on time, and to the scope determined by the programming departments. A formal, functioning project management office combined with a culture of continuing improvement ensures that optimum productivity is achieved while managing cost. Now, the majority of these projects have been managed completely by our own project management team without external management consultants. And although it's sometimes beneficial to use external consultants, there are many benefits to having in-house project management capability. Staff have a sense of ownership, and since we'll remain responsible for the performance of the building, we have a vested interest in the outcome of the construction. As stakeholders, staff also have a vested interest in saving money for the corporation. Another advantage is being able to compile lessons learned from each project to build a library of data and to take those lessons to the next project. In our experience, much of that data is lost when using an external consultant. And finally, in-house service is less expensive than external consultants. The industry typically budgets for project management services as a percentage of project construction cost. And we track this metric as one of our key performance indicators. As an example, an external project management consultant for a project in the range of $20 to $40 million would typically charge between 4% and 6% for project management services. For our projects, including Transit, QE Park, and others, using our internal staff resources, including administration, we averaged about 2% of construction costs, literally half the management fees. So on a $20 million project, that's a savings of $400,000. And we're proud to say that every project opened on schedule. The new transit facility was one of the few infrastructure projects of this magnitude in Southern Ontario that was completed within the original time frame and budget, and received kudos from the provincial liaison staff for that achievement. In fact, our own executive management team recognized the new construction team with a significant achievement award in 2012. We also earned the 2012 Sustainable Communities Award from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. This award recognized the work of both the Environmental Policy Department for developing the Corporate Energy Management Plan, as well as our department for designing and building spectacular LEED facilities and for the development of our Sustainable Design Guidelines. Now, of course, it's wonderful to be able to build new facilities and major renovations. These projects always generate interest and excitement, but we can't just build them and forget about them. And that brings us to the Maintenance and Repair Division managed by Nicole Wolfe. Before 2008, a few of the people that are now in this division were just about all that we had. We were still working then as a small town model, mainly reacting to failures and emergency repairs. But with the ongoing support of council and senior management, Nicole and her team today manage an effective, evidence-based, state of good repair program for all town buildings, as well as programs for the removal of physical barriers, the management of hazardous materials, a corporate furniture program, and the town's energy management program. So first, I'll describe our state of good repair program and evidence-based planning. The state of good repair program uses building condition assessment data to plan the replacement of building components at the end of their useful life, not waiting until components fail. Nicole conducted detailed assessments and itemized all of the major components and systems in all of our buildings. And for each component, we assessed its condition, its expected life, its current value, and its replacement value. All of this data is input into our J.D. Edwards Asset Management Database. And the JDE software develops a preventative maintenance schedule as well as a capital replacement schedule based on end of life. This database was also used to capture information used to develop our DC bylaw, as well as our PB2 budgeting process, which enables accurate and detailed capital forecasting. This is a huge departure from waiting for something to break and speaks loudly to our commitment to Council's objectives of fiscal responsibility and corporate accountability. Under our State of Good Repair program, we currently manage over 2 million square feet of building area. In addition to this planned capital replacement program, Nicole and her team have also developed and implemented corporate furniture standards, accessibility guidelines, and sustainable design guidelines, which now form a part of the town's environmental strategic plan. This division also administers the town's corporate furniture standard, managing furniture installations in all of our facilities for space planning and typical office turnover, as well as new construction projects. In the past 2 years, we've managed over 90 furniture projects totaling over $300,000 in our existing facilities and over $800,000 for new construction projects. Previously, we would have paid outside consultants for this work, but this program has saved us tens of thousands of dollars in consulting fees, $40,000 on QE Park alone, and provides continuity and accountability across the organization. We've also established an energy management program through which we've completed over $1.9 million worth of energy retrofit projects that will reduce energy consumption in our facilities. These projects include lighting upgrades, heat recovery systems, automated building controls, and much more. As a result of these initiatives, in March of this year, we received a check from Oakville Hydro for almost $37,000 through their retrofit incentive program. We've already upgraded our building control systems at all of our major facilities, and we're working with Rec and Culture staff to implement energy monitoring in their buildings. We've partnered with the Environmental Policy Department and ISNS to implement new software that will enable us to quantify the savings achieved through our energy retrofits. This will allow us to measure our energy use for each building, and will enable facility managers to take advantage of energy incentive grants. We're also piloting a program with Rec and Culture using TV monitors that will show the public our real-time use of energy in our recreation facilities, as well as energy-saving tips. Now, the 4 programs that I've just described and are illustrated here could not have been possible without a corporate approach to managing our building assets. Considering the number of programs, processes, and functions related to the operation of our facilities, it's no wonder that we had difficulty establishing accountability. We strove for clarity regarding the work that the corporation was responsible for and the work that the departments occupying the buildings were responsible for. And one of this organization's most challenging, rewarding, and far-reaching achievements has been collaboratively establishing who does what in the management of our facilities, speaking directly to Council's focus on being accountable in everything we do. Stakeholders from across the organization representing every department that provides programs in town buildings and everyone who constructs or maintains those buildings came together and collaborated to develop an operating model that clarifies who does what for all of our facilities. This accountability matrix illustrates at a very high level the consensus that resulted from those discussions. The chart gives a sense of the complexity of this issue and perhaps an appreciation of why it took so long to develop this model. For each of the processes representing the rows in the table, such as new construction, for example, there are corresponding functions such as policy and standard development, advanced planning, needs identification. The body of the table illustrates who is accountable for each of these functions. The client refers to the programming departments, and corporate refers to the facilities and construction management department. This comprehensive framework was developed in parallel with and in partnership with the Finance Department's Asset Management Program to implement the work order management system for buildings. That initiative requires us to understand who's responsible for each building component and who should receive the work orders related to those components. As a result of this collaboration, the model that we've developed is unique to Oakville and takes into consideration our existing resources and capacity. Most other larger municipalities with populations of 150,000 and up have either a completely centralized facilities maintenance function or a separate function that just takes care of their large recreation facilities. Our blended model is designed to ensure that all of our facilities, large and small, are properly maintained. Our business model is also sensitive to the purpose for most of our facilities, and that's to deliver programming to the public. Having this clarity of accountability enables our programming departments to concentrate on delivering those programs, while FCM concentrates on ensuring that our facilities are always in a state of good repair without having breakdowns or unplanned closures that could impact town programs. This enables us to not only be accountable in everything we do, but to also provide outstanding service to our residents and businesses while continuously improving our programs and services, all in keeping with Council's objectives. Now, this model works fine if we're talking about a community center or an ice rink that has qualified building managers and building operators to perform the work. But what about all of those buildings that don't have staff to take care of the facility, typically are smaller buildings? In those cases where facilities don't have staff dedicated to the maintenance of the building, we've developed service level agreements whereby our department represents the client group and performs the work on their behalf. In fact, one of FCM's most significant accomplishments in the past 4 years is the service impact that we've achieved in our smaller facilities. We've defined small facilities as buildings having floor areas under 12,000 square feet. And these include the galleries, the fire halls, some library branches, most of our heritage buildings, over 70 buildings in all. Through our inspections, we've identified over $7 million of needed repairs and replacements to bring these buildings up to standard. In the past 2 years, our small buildings program has completed over $500,000 of repairs and replacements, and $100,000 of that was unplanned emergency work, which speaks loudly to the need for this program. Without this program, those repairs and capital replacements would not have been completed, and the 71 small buildings in this portfolio would continue to decline. Another significant impact of our work over the past 4 years is the removal of physical barriers in our buildings. Accessibility legislation enacted by the province in 2005 requires municipalities to remove physical barriers from our buildings by 2025. Moving toward compliance, we've dedicated a full-time staff person to eliminate physical barriers and to act as an advisor to all facility managers regarding barrier removals. Our audits identified over $13 million in known barriers that must be removed. By the end of 2012, our program will have eliminated over $2 million worth of those barriers, striving to make our facilities welcoming and accessible to all, and to make Oakville the most livable town in Canada. Well, the Budget Committee heard last week that in answer to the question, how do you want your tax dollars spent, which was posted on our web-based ideas forum, the most active themes from the public related to town facilities. So the programs that I've just described speak to the high importance that this community places on our facilities. And that brings us to the Facilities Operation Division under the supervision of Brian Peers and Doug Markham. Where the Maintenance and Repair Division plans the capital replacement of our buildings and building components, is the Facilities Operations Division that establishes and manages the preventative maintenance programs in those facilities. The two divisions work very closely together and even overlap in some areas. But the goal of both programs is to ensure that all building components achieve their expected life. 4 years ago, with the exception of our major facilities, we merely reacted when things would break. Today, we're trying to prevent things from breaking and have implemented a preventative maintenance program using J.D. Edwards Asset Management as a tool tied to the accountability matrix that I spoke of earlier. Preventative maintenance work orders will be generated by the J.D. Edwards program, telling us what work is required and when. This will ensure that all building components achieve their expected life. Now, if the majority of our capital replacement projects are planned rather than unplanned, it indicates that building components are not breaking down, which of course is a measure of an effective preventative maintenance program. Our target is for at least 80% of our work to be planned, and we'll start tracking this in 2013 to determine if these targets are met. And this will be an ongoing KPI for us. Using our asset management database to generate work orders for capital replacements and preventative maintenance, and using this tool to develop our PB2 capital forecasts, puts Oakville at the leading edge of best industry practices. Now, similar to the capital replacement program, the preventative maintenance program can only be implemented successfully if qualified building operators are available for each facility, supervised by qualified technical staff. Again, this is not an issue at our major facilities, but it is a problem at those buildings that don't have staff dedicated to building operations. To address this issue, we're looking to expand the service level agreements that I spoke of earlier to also allow FCM to provide building operations services on behalf of some programming departments. Using evidence-based planning, our operations staff will work proactively with programming departments to schedule preventative maintenance work without impacting or interrupting the town's programs. We first piloted this model with the Oakville Public Library, where Brian now successfully manages preventative maintenance as well as the capital replacement program for all library branches. Doug manages a similar program for the new Oakville Transit facility, as well as components of our central operations facility. This innovative initiative is successfully bringing our library facilities into a state of good repair by properly planning for capital replacements while establishing an effective preventative maintenance program. The facilities operations team is now managing preventative maintenance programs for almost 1 million square feet of building area, about half of the town's facilities. Our goal is to expand this program, subject to resources, to ensure that preventative maintenance programs are implemented in all of our buildings, especially our portfolio of 71 small buildings. So that's the overview of the Facilities and Construction Management Department and our work to build, preserve, and protect the value of the town's building assets. I hope that I've demonstrated how this work represents a significant contribution to the livability of this community by making a tangible contribution to the building infrastructure that houses programs and events for the people of Oakville. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Switzer. Do you have questions, Council? Councillor Khan.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I guess, is there anything empirical you can point us to? For example, now that we're taking a proactive, preventative approach, Is there some numbers you can provide us in saying that before we were doing this, before we employed the JDE or JD Edwards program, we had X amount of unplanned closures or breakdowns, and now, since we've been implementing this program, we've greatly reduced that. Is there something empirical? You said something about 80%, that's the target.
Yes.
What do we have right now, or what we have had in the past to compare with?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. This is all new ground for us, Councillor. When I mentioned the 80% KPI that we'll start tracking in 2013, that's because this is the first year that we're actually implementing the work order management program. So we've been piloting it for several months now at some of our large facilities. We hope by the end of this year that more facilities will be online and that we'll be actually generating these work orders and working with them. Because it's in a database, we'll be able to track all this data, and we will have empirical data that we will continue to track as a performance measure.
Going in the future, you'll be able to tell us how much taxpayer dollars we save by implementing such programs.
Hadn't thought of it that way, but that's something that we can certainly look at.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Knoll.
Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Switzer. I think the slide deck proves that we own a lot of really cool stuff, but my question was with respect to the geothermal plant and the transit facility. Do we have any kind of analysis of the success and performance of that geothermal program?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, not at this time, Councillor Knoll.
Is that something that could be coming at some point and be presented to council? Because it's obviously certainly an interesting project, and I'd certainly be interested in knowing what kind of performance you're getting out of that.
I'll certainly be in a position as 2013 progresses, we'll be able to track with the monitoring that I discussed, that I talked about, we'll be able to track those costs and be pleased to come back to council and present that data.
Is that currently the only geothermal installation within a municipally owned building?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Oh, I really like the picture of Brian with the alarm panel too. That was pretty awesome.
And Councillor, I can tell you that the CAO is quite proud of the geothermal thing. He's indicated to me that you'll get a presentation.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it because I think that it could be something really excellent for the future for our facilities. So look forward to it.
Next, Councillor DeMoff.
Thank you for the presentation. I wonder if you could go through just an overview of how companies are chosen to do the work and for both the large and smaller ones, and if any consideration is given, or what consideration, if any, to choosing local Oakville-based companies versus companies who are not based here.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor DeMoff, all of our contracts are let in accordance with the purchasing bylaw. So depending on the value of, or the expected value of the contract, it either goes out to a full tender or it just goes through a quotation process where we'll take 3 quotes, a minimum of 3 quotes for a smaller project, for a much smaller project. I don't believe that there's any possible way that we could give a leg up to local contractors, because it wouldn't be fair. We have an obligation to take the best price that we can get for any of our tenders.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Adams.
Mr. Lalonde, I think, had some additional information on the last question.
I just wanted to add to Shelley's answer that we are compelled by legislation and law to put our tenders out across the board and to be very equitable about that. So we can't give a leg up to local contributors, but what we have done is we've gone through our bylaw and we've taken out any impediments that we could find that would make it more difficult for local people to bid. So that was what we could do in that circumstance.
And as well, it's worth mentioning, this is council's bylaw that seeks the best value for the taxpayer. Councillor Adams.
Thank you very much, and let me congratulate you on all the work you've done since about 2008, when you've been undertaking all those major facilities that you've been constructing in the new construction side of your work. Many of them are astounding feats of work, and the speed with which you've done it has been truly amazing. Would you be able to reach back into the historical database of the town and describe to me how new construction was done, say a decade ago, back when, for example, Iroquois Ridge was being built, the community center there? How was that different in terms of the new construction process?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Adams, I believe that at the time, if you want to go back 10 years. Typically, if the need was established and a budget was established for a new facility, the town would have employed the use of an outside consultant. So a project management consultant would have been retained. I believe in some cases it may, and I stand to be corrected on this, but it's possible that the architect himself, as the lead consultant, may have also been involved in contract administration or project management. I'm not sure if that was done in Oakville or not. I think typically the model would have been to use an external project management consultant as opposed to what we're doing with internal project management staff.
Councillor, Mr. Switzer was the chief building officer before he took on this job for us, but the town manager might be able to give you a crisper set of, I mean, he was a little closer to it. Mr. Green?
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I just want to add actually a couple of comments, and in particular to the question from Councillor Adams. It was a hit and miss around the organization. For quite often it relied on the user department to take the lead with some support from what was called capital assets in the past. So if you had a department like recreation, they would have led the process. They were not really building sciences people, they were program deliverers. In the public works, I was involved in a number of projects. We had the good fortune, of course, of being engineers. That typically moving into that area wasn't as great a thing. So it was hit and miss throughout the organization. It really became the program delivery taking that lead, which was often not the best person to be leading it. So certainly our consolidations within facilities and construction management has moved into more the building sciences, and Shelley, with his background as director of buildings, has certainly upped the game in terms of the quality of the work that the town is able to achieve. And one of the things I do have to commend Shelley and his staff, if you think of where they have come in these past 4 years. Now, the last thing I want to do, unfortunately, is admit to a bit of a seniors moment, because as I was introducing Shelley, I referred to him as being Director of Capital Assets, which is exactly where we've been trying to get away from. And I had that seniors moment. I actually had Facilities and Construction Management written down here, and I couldn't remember it, so out came Capital Assets. So there's my admission of seniors moment for the night.
The results have been so great, we forgive you the nomenclature.
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate that additional information. Many of us on around the table here weren't on council back in 2000, and so we haven't seen all of the kinds of construction and design work that happened before with outside consultants versus the inside consultant work, in effect, that you're doing. But certainly we've seen the results that you've been providing us, and we do appreciate it.
I think just even to put a little bit of color onto your question, if you think of some of the issues we had at Iroquois Ridge, River Oaks, and Glen Abbey, all three major structures built in sort of the 80s and the 90s under the old model. Some of the inherent is because it was dealt with by consultants who, after the job's finished, they're gone.
Thank you, and it's a very good note that you can see Mr. Green has noted all of the major facilities that were built previously, and a lot of the rework that has had to be done as a result of, I'll call it mistakes or errors in design work that came before.
Well, I know that's been an issue for you and your constituents in your ward, but we're not done yet. Councillor Elgar would like a piece of this too.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Switzer, for coming forward and presenting tonight. Just to confirm, so for like the soccer facility, the bus building, 16 Mile Creek and QE Park, those are all not design build by the contractor. They were designed by us.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Pine Glen Indoor Soccer Arena, as well as 16 Mile Sports Complex, were both design build using external project management consultants. Transit and QE Park and other smaller facilities were all done internally through our group.
Okay, I just want to, okay, so definitely with the soccer facility and 16 Mile were
Yes.
design build. Okay, that's what I thought, but when I listened tonight, I thought maybe not, so thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Elgar. Mr. Green.
Again, one of the key differences, though, is we've had the staff to actually give the oversight to the mechanical engineers, to the electrical engineers, to the architects. You still need those specialty people to do that design work, or whether it's a design build or a design bid build, you still need those disciplines. But what we've done now is we've put in place our own project management that gives the oversight to the work so that we're getting that better product.
All right, well, thank you. In a moment, I'll ask for a mover and a seconder to receive the information. I just want to quickly say that we know, because we hear from our residents, that the fit, finish, and sparkle of town buildings is very important to them. And I want to say that Council and I are we're very cognizant of what an innovation-seeking, can-do, challenge-embracing, winning team you lead. And we're very proud of you. So thank you very much for the report.
Thank you.
And Council, could I have a mover and seconder? Councillor Lapworth, Councillor Elgar, all in favor? Opposed? Thank you very much. That carries. Madam Council, we now come to item number 2, which is the provincial reassessment program to update market values to the 2012 base year. And I believe we're going to be treated to a presentation by MPAC themselves, and Erica Roberts will introduce, set it up. If it was a TV show, we'd be saying you were setting up the item.
Yes, that's right. Mr. Mayor, members of council, before you tonight is the report crafted by Financial Operations Department, which gives you a little bit of information on the 2012 reassessment. It's going to update assessments for all the properties in Ontario. In the report, we provided some information on the process that's involved in a reassessment program, the type of information that property owners receive when they get their assessment notice. And we've also provided some assessment increases in percentages for Oakville and the other municipalities in Halton as compared to the province as a whole, and the effects that these increases will cause. As part of the report, we mentioned that we had invited MPAC staff, an MPAC representative, to come forward and give you a little bit more specific information. So I'd like to introduce Mr. John Daly from MPAC. Come ahead. So
welcome, Mr. Daly.
The Municipal Property Assessment Corporation, acronym MPAC. I'll turn it over to you, and he'll be available after the presentation if you have questions. Thank you.
Welcome. We're looking forward to your information, and there may even be questions.
Fair enough. Good evening, Your Worship, members of council, and municipal staff. My name is John Daly, and I am the MPAC's Municipal Relations Representative for Halton and Peel Region. I've been with MPAC since 1998. The majority of that time I was Industrial Assessor of the Niagara Region, and I've taken on the municipal role representative since this April. I'm pleased to be here today to review with you the assessment process and to discuss some of the highlights from the 2012 assessment update. During today's presentation, I will briefly review the roles, responsibilities, and relationships of MPAC, the Province of Ontario, and the municipalities within the assessment process. Following that, I'll provide an overview of property assessment in Ontario, including the use of current value assessment, the valuation process, the legislative framework, and the current assessment cycle. With the 2012 assessment update notice delivery for this area, which most of your property owners should have received their notices, the residential properties, I'll provide details on the property assessment notice as well as the enhancements to the About My Property site. We will also review the request for reconsideration and the assessment review board process. Lastly, we will look at the changes to your municipality due to the 2012 assessment update. For the roles and responsibilities and relationships, the provincial government of Ontario is responsible for legislation and tax policy, and specifically the Assessment Act responsible for tax billing with respects to the provincial land tax or areas in the north without municipal jurisdiction. NPAC, our role is to administer a uniform province-wide property assessment system based on a current value assessment. We assign a current value assessment and property tax class to almost 5 million properties. We also delivered annually the assessment roll to all 444 municipalities across the province. And lastly, we prepare jury duty lists, school support lists, and preliminary list of electors used for municipal and school board election purposes. The municipalities use MPAC's current value assessment as the basis for distributing municipal property taxes, produce and distribute tax bills, and to property owners. The Assessment Review Board, they're an independent tribunal of the provincial government that adjudicates assessment appeals, and that's when a property taxpayer challenges their assessment or classification. A quick review about MPAC. The Municipal Property Assessment Corporation is a not-for-profit, non-share capital corporation with 33 field offices across the province. It's governed by a 15-member board of directors, which consists of 8 municipal representatives, 5 taxpayer representatives, 2 provincial representatives. Every municipality is a member of MPAC. All members of the board are appointed by the Minister of Finance. MPAC is the largest assessment jurisdiction in all of North America. Again, we assess and classify almost 5 million properties according to their use as directed by the assessment regulations. We annually prepare and deliver the assessment roll to the municipality by the second Tuesday after December 1st, which will be December 11th, 2012. We also deliver supplementary and omitted listings that are generated throughout the year to update the assessment roll for new construction and/or alterations to properties, which would be your assessment growth. We respond to assessment inquiries, including requests for consideration reviews. And again, in addition, we provide the preliminary list of electors for municipal and school board elections, create jury duty lists, and population reports. Current value assessment. Properties are classified according to their use as directed by the assessment regulations. The current value assessment of real property is based what a property would be expected to sell for on the open market between a willing buyer and a willing seller. Funded by 444 municipalities, MPAC determines the current value assessment of a property by analyzing the actual sales prices of properties in a given area. Not all real estate sales are arm's length transactions or representative of the market conditions, and therefore cannot be included in the analysis or the valuation process. Examples of these are family sales, power of sales, foreclosures, clearing of title sales. These sales or transactions are removed from our analyst process. Currently, the assessment cycle is a total of 4 years. The last assessment update was completed in 2008 for taxation years 2009, 10, 11, and 12, with changes in the assessment being phased in over the 4-year period. The next update, effective valuation date, will be January 1st, 2012. The government introduced the phase-in program to provide an additional level of property tax stability and predictability. In the phase-in program, market increases in the assessed value between the January 1st, 2005 and January 1st, 2008 valuation dates are phased in over 4 years. Decreases in assessments are applied immediately. The next assessment update did occur this year and will be based on the market as of January 1st, 2012. Notices have been mailed to every property in the province. Sorry, I stand corrected, to all residential properties and farm properties. Business properties are still coming, which should be at the end of November. Outlining the change in value since 2008, and increases will subsequently be phased in over the following 4 years. So that would be 2013 to 2016. Once again, decreases in assessments are applied immediately. This is an assessment phase-in example. In this example, we have a residential property valued at $580,000 in January 2012. The previous value of the property was in January 1st, 2008 was $500,000. The change in value is $80,000. The $80,000 is phased in equally over the 4 taxation years, starting in 2013, as shown in the chart. To sum that up, if you take the $80,000, divide by 4, that's what your increase is per year. Beginning in September, MPAC did mail out the new 2012 assessment update notices to Ontario's nearly 5 million properties. New for this year is the approach undertaken for mailing the business property assessment notices. These notices will be mailed to all business property owners in the province at the same time. The delivery date will be the end of November. This allows for MPAC staff to further review the values to ensure that the updated assessments reflect the market conditions for the various business property types as of January 1st, 2012. In regards to your municipality, MPAC will be mailing close to 58,000 notices. This is an example of the new property assessment notice. Property taxpayers should pay particular attention to the percentage change section on the notice. It provides the property taxpayer with a comparison of the assessment change for their own property between 2012 and 2013 taxation years versus the overall change in the municipality for the residential property classification. In 2007, MPAC added an About My Property trademark, username, and password directly on the assessment notice. We are continuing this initiative with the 2012 assessment update. Property owners will find a unique About My Property username and access key on their assessment notice. Property taxpayers who wish to obtain additional information about their property or would like information with respect to similar properties in their area can access About My Property at www.aboutmyproperty.ca, or they can find a link on MPAC's website at www.mpac.ca. Property taxpayers who do not have access to the internet can access the AMP site at Service Ontario centres, participating libraries, and municipal offices. Alternatively, they can contact MPAC's Customer Contact Centre directly to request this information. The About My Property program was originally released in 2008 to assist property owners in understanding their property assessment. It allowed them to compare their property assessment to similar properties in their neighborhood. In preparation for the 2012 assessment update, MPAC will release an enhanced version of AMP. This new and improved website builds on existing features and adds new ones. The next few slides will highlight AMP. Once property owners receive their notice, they will be able to go online to About My Property version 2 and review the information MPAC has on their property and compare it to other properties in their area. Property owners will be able to find their roll number and personalized access key on their property assessment notice. If the property owner does not have access to the internet, they can access this through the Service Ontario, their local library, and some municipal offices. For security reasons, once the property owner accesses About My Property, they will be asked to create their personal profile, which will be their user ID, password, security question, and an email address. Once on the site, the property owner will see a picture of their property, the location on a map, and a copy of their most recent notice. If the property owner owns more than one property, they now have the option to update their customer profile under the My Profile tab to add multiple addresses. This is a significant enhancement to AMP. This enables the property owner to add multiple addresses to one login session and access all of their properties without separate accounts. Multi-property owners add properties to profile using the property assessment access key and their roll number. Another new feature is the ability for the property owner to view, print, save a copy of the property assessment notice for this year. Future notices will also be available online to print on demand. Another new feature is the ability for the property owner to confirm that the information MPAC has on file for their property is accurate. If not, they will also be given the opportunity to provide changes for the property as required. If the property owner enters that the information is incorrect, then they will be requested to complete a request for property information pop-up. Depending on the nature of the response, MPAC may need to follow up with a site visit. This online form can be submitted once per year. If there are any additional changes, owners should contact MPAC. With the improved website, property owners will have the option to view the sales within their vicinity. AMP will automatically generate a report that contains up to 15 valid sales that have occurred in the neighborhood surrounding the subject property. The sales will be plotted on the map with photos displayed on the top of the page, and this slide illustrates the map view. However, the user can also select the report view option. Property owners will be able to view up to 100 property snapshots and select up to 24 detailed properties to include on their properties of interest report. This report displays pictures, map locations, and details of those properties for comparison purposes. This slide illustrates My Properties of Interest report, with the subject property being on the left column. If the property owner does not agree with their assessed value, property classification, or their school support, they can submit a request for consideration online for any eligible notice they have received. Once submitted, they will receive a confirmation stating that the request for consideration was received by MPAC. The request for consideration with the properties of interest will be attached by default. You can also add your own information, whatever you see as evidence that you would like for us to review. In 2009, the request for consideration became mandatory, first step for the reconsideration of assessment for residential, farm, and managed forest property classes. The request for reconsideration is not mandatory for other property classes. Starting with the 2012 assessment update, 2 requests for reconsideration forms will be available for property owners. There is a new request for reconsideration form for residential properties. All other properties will continue to use the existing form. The residential request for reconsideration form will include an additional section entitled Residential Property Data. Property owners will have the ability to provide details on the structures, site services, and recent changes to their property. The completion of this new section will provide for an additional level of data verification and assist us in our review of the property owner's requests. The legislative deadline to file the request for reconsideration is March 31st of the taxation year. However, that date falls on the weekend, and the deadline is the first Monday following. For 2013, the filing deadline is April 1st. The standard disclosure package included with every request for reconsideration acknowledgement letter, including a property profile. Before we move on to the 2012 assessment update summary, I wanted to share with you one of MPAC's recent initiatives. This would be the market snapshot report of all residential sales prices in Ontario. The market snapshot report was released in July, and it comments on the average residential sale price trends for Ontario, as well as selected market locations throughout the province. This report does not summarize assessment changes. It reflects the trends within the residential real estate market. Through the use of the Residential Sales Price Index, MPAC used January 1st, 2008 as its benchmark. For the province of Ontario, the Residential Sale Price Index shows a 17% increase in the average sale price from January 1st, 2008 to January 1st, 2012. This report is the first in a series of reports planned for release as we progress towards the delivery of the 2012 province-wide assessment. And we've just recently released our farm report. If you are interested in that, you can just go to www.mpac.ca. This is the estimated average change by residential tax class. For Halton region, you're looking at 20.3, Town of Oakville 21.1, Town of Milton 20.1, City of Burlington 20.0, Town of Halton Hills 17.9. For the 4-year phase-in, you're looking for Halton region at about roughly a 5.0%, Town of Oakville a 5.2%, Town of Milton a 5.02%, City of Burlington 5%, and the Town of Halton Hills 4.4%. This is the estimated average change residentially by ward for the Town of Oakville. I would just like to mention that this does not include residential condominiums. For Ward 1, you're looking at 24.05%, Ward 2, 21.7%, Ward 3, 16.8%, Ward 4, 23.7%, Ward 5, 21.8%, Ward 6, 24.0%. Breaking that into a 4-year increase, dividing that number by 4, you're looking at, for Ward 1, 6.0, Ward 2, 5.4, Ward 3, 4.2, Ward 4, 5.9, Wards 5, 5.4, and Ward 6, 6%, 6.0. In addition, on our outreach initiatives, MPAC introduced a series of new brochures to assist in explaining the various types of properties and how they are assessed. A copy of these brochures, along with facts about MPAC, is in your folio. We hope you will find these useful when addressing any inquiries from your constituents. There's various ways for property owners to contact MPAC. They can visit our website. They can speak to one of our trained specialists at our customer contact center. They can send us a letter by email or fax, or feel free to drop into one of the 33 MPAC offices located across the province. For Oakville, that would be at 6745 Century Avenue, which is 401 in Mississauga Road area. And we do have extended hours right now where we're open till 6.
Thank you very much, Mr. Daly. Councillor Elgar would like to ask some questions, followed by others.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the presentation. Yeah, I think you've done a good job, and I really like how you've done the comparables, which make it easier to look forward to. The question is, at the very beginning, you build a house. We can't tax anybody until we get the assessment value. What is the timeline from when a person, what kicks the whole process off?
The whole process starts with working with the municipality or your municipal staff. They provide us with a building permit list. Once we receive that building permit list, which that is another initiative, they're all done electronically now, so we get them faster. From there, that goes to the local manager for residential properties, and then they assign them to our property inspectors, and then they go out and see if it's occupied or not.
And if it's not occupied? Like, now, what kicks the occupation? Is there like a occupancy permit
Yes.
that your staff looks at?
Yes.
Now, what happens if something gets missed in that occupancy permit, but the people live there for a year or two before they get any, because it does happen.
It does happen. I'm not going to say it doesn't. Technically, we can go back 3 years if we missed it.
So that's what the deal
That would be
is.
what we would call an omitted assessment. So if somebody moves in January 1st and we don't pick it up till the following year, we can still use the effective date of when they moved in. And we'll go back for those years in taxes, but we can only go back 3 years. So if we miss anything more than 3 years, that's lost revenue, and we take it very serious.
No, I appreciate that, because it has happened a few times, I know in my own ward, and people get extremely upset, but it's not that they don't know the taxes, but I guess people think they're not going to have to pay.
Yeah, again, we can go back 3 years, and it is very upsetting for the property owner when they get hit with such a large tax bill. We do understand it, and it is one of our initiatives with our new 4-year strategy to pick up all new construction within 1 year.
Now, if we don't send the occupancy permit to your staff, then what happens? Who's responsible?
Usually it manages to come to our attention in different forms. One would be the property inspector knowing the neighborhood. We do edit checks. Sometimes we'll get a phone call. And again, if somebody goes on to about my property and says my neighbor, was assessed for only $60,000, you guys haven't picked up the house, then that would be another way that would be a trigger for us.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Giddings.
Thank you very much. Very timely presentation. I think all our residents in our ward received their notices fairly recently based on the phone calls I've received. You talked about specifically Ward 3, it was 16.8%. Is there ability to drill down further than that you could provide us at some point, looking at an eclectic area where there's new construction in one area, a downtown core, very different areas making up the total area?
Do you mean like by digging down by property type, like business, commercial, or like difference between a single family detached versus
more
a
more by neighborhood?
Okay. It is possible for us to get that information. When we do develop these values, it's what we call it's all done through stats. And it's done through what we call a homogeneous neighborhood, where we've set a boundary of this is a neighborhood that we think is very much the same. So I don't know how much further we could go deeper than that. Like we could pull properties that are 2 stories, or this has this much square footage, if that's what you would be looking for.
All right, I'll follow up with you after, later on that one. You talk about homogeneous neighborhoods. What effect does it have when you have an older, more mature area where the houses are being demolished, new houses are going up? There's a sense that perhaps the algorithm is quick to catch the increased sale and that it may apply to other houses in the area?
That's, obviously you know about multiple regression analysis and that's the modeling technique, which is very, very accurate for new constructions or new subdivisions. When you talk about older neighborhoods, it really comes down to how accurate is our data or how up to date it is. And that is like a continuous process for us. MPAC's no different. We got limited resources. We try to do things as cost effective as possible. But we do have a new mandate now to inspect every property, especially residential and the older neighborhoods, I believe once every like 7 years.
All right, just one more, Ms. Weird, I'll pass it over. I have yet to receive a phone call from somebody saying, my assessment seems to be too low. How do I go about raising it? That's probably your experience as well.
Yes.
When it goes through the process, some experience with various people in terms of they go and they show their comparables compared to your comparables. And the question is, well, why didn't you look at my street, or why didn't you look at my immediate neighbor's house instead of showing us comparables of houses blocks and blocks away, built at a different time in a different neighborhood with different services?
Again, when we come up with our comparables, it's almost like if we're preparing for an assessment review board hearing. And the case law on that is to try and get the most comparable to the property, even if you have to like expand in a circular way of just grabbing the closest comparable that you can. Obviously, there is a limit of how far you want to go outside of that circular pattern of just expanding outwards. So we would look at the owner's comparables, but there is also the possibility that we could be in disagreement that we think they are comparable. We could be in the opinion that our comparables are more accurate. And if we're in a disagreement and it does happen, then it would have to go through the assessment review board process. But we still look at the owner's comparables, but we might disagree with them.
Thank you. Councillor Duddock?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. On the issue of when there's been a dramatic increase in terms of the property assessment, I was one of those who was fortunate enough to receive that. And shortly thereafter, we had a visit from an assessor at the front door. Out of interest, are those visits on a personal basis tied into ones that have had a dramatic increase, or is that something that happens on a normal basis? My question is again, it sort of in preparation for the assessment review board process, anticipating someone may want to challenge the assessment?
Well, there's certain triggers that would make our staff be out to your property. If there's new construction activity or permits taken out, if there's a request for a consideration on the property, we'll be out. If the property is under an assessment review board hearing appeal, we'll be out. If another owner is saying your data is wrong about this other neighborhood, we'll be out. And also now under one of our initiatives, we'll be going into neighborhoods that we haven't re-inspected in a while and just do a whole re-inspection of the whole neighborhood. So it's a constantly fluid process that we're trying to get out there.
Thank you. I was just interested in sort of anticipating if somebody said they had somebody come to the door, whether or not there was a correlation. So thank you.
You could have been 5 out of 5 there. If there are no other questions, I have one. Councillor Giddings, you want to go again? Sure, yes.
Following Councillor Duddock's question in terms of inspecting neighborhoods, isn't the best way, based on the fact that the assessment should be what the house would sell for in an arm's length transaction on a certain date, wouldn't the best method to be the sales stats? And
that's a good point. That has changed. Even if you go to an assessment review board hearing, not only do we have to get a current market value of the property, and like you said, there is no better evidence if a recent sale, a true arm's length sale has taken place on the property, but we also have to look at, is this property equitable? Is it being treated the same way as other properties? So if a person buys a house and the assessment's lower than what they paid for it, we can't just go and push up their assessment to match that sale price, because we have to make sure that that house is also being treated the same way as everybody else in the neighborhood.
Well, you're following the act in terms of assessing it at what it sold for at
Yes.
that certain time.
There's two parts of the act now. There's the current market value, and it has to be equitable as well. It's it's changed in that sense.
Because that'll make it easier. Councillor Demoff.
Thank you for coming tonight and shedding some light on what's quite often a complicated issue.
There has been a lot of changes.
If someone does just feel that their assessment is unfair and they do ask for it to be reviewed, what kind of timing are you looking at as a resident from when it starts to when, and let's assume they're successful, what's the process that goes through, and then when would they see their assessment changed and reflected on their tax bill?
Okay, if just an average scenario, if somebody puts in a request for consideration and their argument is we have the wrong square footage on the property. So our inspector would go out, remeasure the property. Let's say we're 500 square feet off. Somebody made a mathematical calculation. We would change that square footage on our model, our multiple regression analysis, come up with a new value. We would then contact the owner, mail out minutes of settlement, changing it to the new value. Hopefully they would sign off on it. We would receive it back, and then we send it to the town, and then they would process it. Anywhere along that way, something could happen, as in the owner might not agree with it. They could lose the minutes of settlement that we sent. But on a typical process, it gets pretty well completed quickly.
But how long does that whole process take, assuming that everything goes well?
Well, first of all, for the request for reconsideration, we know we get a lot of them in a reassessment year. We try to respond within 90 days of either we agree with you, the assessment should be reduced, or we're going to say, no, we think the assessment's right, and then you'd have to file an assessment review board hearing. And there is the possibility where we would say we could make a motion that we think the assessment should be raised because we didn't have some other details on the property. So it's a very, I can't give you a definite average process of it because there's so many variables that could happen.
Okay. My other question was, we as councillors generally aren't dealing with you, it's our staff who are. So what is your internal process for our staff? Do you have someone that's dedicated just to town officials and...
Yes, it's me.
It's you, okay.
We're
All
in
right.
constant contact every day, sometimes many times a day. And we have a manager that's in charge of Oakville, and he has his residential property inspectors.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bird, and then Councillor Elder, and then Councillor...
I want to explore the, I guess, experience we had the last go-around in our particular ward. And what you say, there's a number of variables that apply, and how people find out that about those when they're doing their comparables. In my ward, we had, I guess affectionately called the rectangle. There was almost in dead center in the middle. It appeared that there was an arbitrary assignment of property values at anybody living in the rectangle, because you had homeowners on one side of the street got this notice increased, and of course their neighbor across the road didn't. You may recall it because it went to the ombudsman.
I believe I was told about it. I believe we fixed, or we've moved it.
Yeah, it went to the ombudsman, and they did find out that someone in your department arbitrarily assigned a value to the properties in the rectangle. Am I assured that now we've had a hearing and those people were put neighbor against neighbor and the community against other communities, that this new one going around doesn't have those arbitrary values?
I'm very convinced that we take the Ombudsman report very seriously, and MPAC is doing everything it can as quick as it can to make the system as transparent as possible. Your property owners are practically looking at identical information that the assessor's looking at.
So there won't be another rectangle. The reason I'm saying, because there's a meeting in this building tomorrow of a ratepayers association, which was the genesis of the ratepayer was your company's assessment last year and what they perceived the unfairness of creating this rectangle.
And if the ratepayers meet and they find that their values are not correct, we're committed with working and making it right.
Well, your assessment is one of the items tomorrow night, the ratepayer group, and committee room 1 and 2, it's beginning at 7 o'clock.
I'll see if I can be there.
You might want to wash your hair that night. Councillor Elgar.
Thank you. In answer to Councillor Giddings' question about if the sale price is higher than MPAC number, if the sale is in 2012, really nothing's going to happen. The flip side of that, if the sale price is lower than the MPAC value, what happens? Would a person then have to, would they be, the reassessment would then stand, or how would that work if it's truly an arm's length transaction?
That would be very strong evidence that our assessment is too high. And when they would submit that request for reconsideration, we would look at that very carefully. We'd double check the sale, that it is an arm's length sale. And if it is an arm's length sale, more than likely we're going to lower the assessment to that value.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks.
And that brings us around to Councillor Dudek.
Thank you, Your Worship. Further to what Councillor DeMoff had raised in regards to the time frame associated for an appeal process and notification, there's been a couple of instances where we've had somebody appeal their tax assessment. They've been successful, but there's been a lag time in terms of notification between your offices and our town offices, and invariably the taxpayer is going to our town office saying, I got a decrease, why aren't you doing it? And unfortunately, of course, town can't do that until they receive something from your offices. Have there been changes made in regards to speeding up or streamlining the process to avoid situations like that from occurring?
Can I just clarify, are you asking about a request for reconsideration process or an assessment review board process?
The assessment review board process.
I can't comment on what the assessment review board does because they are completely independent of us. We don't have any say with them. Whatever they tell us or on their timetable, we have to deal with just like the property owner. I know that they've made a commitment of some kind. We've had a huge influx of business properties appeals because they've just let them keep hanging around. And I think that they made some sort of mandate that they want them cleared up by the springtime. But again, MPAC has no contact with the assessment. They're independent from us, and they're a judicial body, and we follow them. We don't tell them what to do.
So if an ordinary taxpayer had a problem with it and was, what shall I say, displeased with the process and the delays, who should they be approaching? Would that be the provincial government that would be handling that?
I would recommend, if I was talking to that property owner, if they had been to a hearing and they're awaiting on a decision and it's taking a long time, that they just contact the assessment review board because they're the one making the decision.
Okay, but
the
I think
councillor is concerned that there's been a decision.
Okay.
It's been mailed out to the resident, and the resident is now vexed because they're waiting, in their opinion, too long for the notice to catch up to the town.
That does happen too, because sometimes also when the assessment review board does make a decision, and technically, and I'm just trying to think of what happened here, I'm just guessing that maybe it was a question of law. So we've we've received the decision, but we still think it's the wrong decision, so we can file a motion to appeal it and have it heard again. It's called a leave to appeal. I'm just thinking of, that is a scenario where the decision could be taken up. If you gave me the roll number, I could track it down for you.
Is this a recent event?
Through your worship, it's been resolved, but I felt very badly for our town staff who were bearing the brunt of the fact that until they get notification, their hands are tied. They have to go ahead and process it under the assessed rate. And the person's tax bill reflects that increase still until such time as they receive something from MPAC. That was the frustration.
Right. Well, let's hope the spirit of continuous improvement we heard in your presentation has resolved at least that problem for people. Thank you very much for your information. Council, I assume that's the last question. Thank you very much, sir. We appreciate your time here.
Thank you.
Council, if I could look for a mover and seconder to receive the information. Councillor Duddick and Councillor Giddings, all in favor? Opposed, if any? And that is adopted. Council, that brings us to item number 3. Councillor Johnston, the council appointments to various committees and boards.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move the recommendation on pages 55, 56, 57 with 2 changes and 3 additions. And the changes are 1A, delete Councillor Adams, replace with Councillor Can. 1B, delete Councillor Can and replace with Councillor Adams. And on 3A, add Councillor Gittings to that vacancy. 3D, add Councillor Demoff. And 3E, add Councillor Can. And 5D, add Mayor Burton. And the rest are as written.
I need a seconder for that motion. Councillor Lapworth. All those in favor? Sorry? I can't hear you.
We're just a little confused over here as to, none of those, can we just review those one more time? I'm sorry. I think we're all trying to follow along here. We lost.
All right.
You have to learn to follow the accent.
Yeah.
Switch Councillor Adams and Can for ASC and CSC. The CAO Review Committee, add Councillor Gittings to the vacancy that was there. What that was is I was looking for a previous budget chair. Well, Councillor Elgar was the previous budget chair before, so he should be that, and we're looking for the rep from CSC, which is Councillor Gittings. And then the Tourism Partnership was Councillor Demoff, United Way is Councillor Can, and the Downtown BIA is Mayor Burton. And everything else is as printed.
Okay, and so my next question is then, I know that I'm fine, and I spoke to you, Your Worship, about 4E. In terms of 4D, is the other Councillor Bird satisfied with that change? He's fine? Oh, well then
Councillor, I checked with everyone before I made the motion.
Perfect, that's all I wanted to know. Thank you very much.
All right, it's moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is adopted. Thank you, Council. Now we come to Commissioner Lalonde and the report from Oakville report from Commissioner Lalonde about Oakville Hydro. Commissioner,
we have representatives here to speak to you. Rob Lister is available.
I'd like to thank Oakville Hydro for their patience, and you're up now.
I'm actually going to ask our CFO, Jim Collins, to come up and speak to this matter.
All right. So, Council, this matter would, the clerk reminds me, if you wish to discuss it, we need to go into camera, and if, on the other hand, you would like to move it, you don't have to go into camera. Councillor Knoll.
If there's no other desire on council to discuss the matter further, I'd be happy to move this item. It's another great initiative.
Thank you. Councillor Duddick, was that you to second? All right. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you for your time and patience.
Just clarify that you've adopted the recommendation and say
All right. So now we're moving right along. to item number 5, which is captioned "The Potential Unionization of School Crossing Guards." And here we have a report from the Human Resources Department. And here, Council, I don't know. Let me take a look. I believe that the matter is straightforward. Yes, but that's item 4. We're in 5.
Sorry. Sorry. That should be 5. I got the wrong number.
Yeah. So basically, Council, you have the public report in front of you that states that a machinist union is attempting to organize the school crossing guard, and the union has informed the town that it's filed an application to certify the guards, and staff are seeking the opportunity to present a verbal report in closed session pursuant to Section 239 sub 2 of the Municipal Act and Section 2.10 sub 2 of Council's Procedure Bylaw, as the subject matter being considered as related to labor relations and employee negotiations. To accord staff the ability to give you that verbal report, I need a mover and seconder for that motion. Councillor Duddick and Councillor Grant, all those in favor? Carried. So, Madam Clerk, would you arrange the chamber for a meeting closed to the public? And councillors, for efficiency and for the convenience of the public, can we include in that motion item C2, which would be covered under the provision in the Municipal Act and our procedure bylaw for personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal employees? So we'll take that as moved, and we'll include, having been included in the vote. So, Madam Clerk, you're satisfied, I'm satisfied. We will now take a 5-minute recess while we set the chamber for a meeting closed to the public, and then we'll be back.